Following the public outcry for additional C45 shapes and thicknesses, Franklin is now launching their Gen 3 Dynasty and Tempo to complement their hybrid-shaped C45. Just like the existing hybrid shape, these new shapes will be available for $207 after this channel's discount code. Anything over $200 really has to justify their price and bring something unique to the market, which I think the C45s do. As a quick pros and cons list, all shapes of the C45 and all thicknesses are lightweight, highly maneuverable, and have strong pop. All C45s also sport both UPA and USAP approval status, so you can take them to any tournament for any organization at any level and know they'll be approved for play. Subjectively speaking, I also think the face of the C45s all have a very pleasant feel to them when connecting with the sweet spot, and their aesthetic is pretty top-notch. Without weight, the C45s play pretty unstable and have a smaller sweet spot, so please do add some weight. They also have a pretty low dwell time, and the ball doesn't really absorb into the face very much, which is either a pro or a con, depending on your preference. Some people experience some break-in or heating up with their hybrid C45s over time, but this wasn't something I experienced, so just know that's a possibility. The Dynasty is the new elongated model, and the Tempo will be their new standard shape, both of which will complement their existing hybrid-shaped C45. The Dynasty and Tempo have both 14 and 16mm thickness options, and one underrated standout feature is their handles, which have a narrow circumference and both feel very solid and easy to manipulate. For some reason, the colors reviewers were sent were originally flipped, and we got the elongated Dynasty in red and the standard Tempo in teal, but the ones that will be ready for sale on opening day will have teal colored Dynasties and red Tempos. I think Franklin must have heard enough feedback from the public though that people really wanted the elongated Dynasty models in red, so when these models launch, they will also have red Dynasty models available for pre-order. If you want a detailed dissection of the C45s, check out my original C45 video where I got more into depth with all the details here, but as a quick recap, the core of the C45 is made with a very precise CNC cutting to create a diving board like Gen 3 design with dual foam layers. The face has a triple layer of carbon fiber oriented at 45 degrees from each other, hence the name C45, which gives the face a nice plush feel to offset the thinner core, especially in the 14mm models. I also inspected the C45 thoroughly for signs of any factory-induced overcompressed cores, but the honeycombs inside here appeared very healthy and straight as an arrow. I'll put some measured specs on the screen here for you to pause and check out at your leisure. It's pretty obvious that the swing weights of the Tempos are low, and even though the swing weights of the Dynasties are also low for their shape, the fact that they also have a low balance point and center of gravity also contributes to these paddles feeling easy to whip around. The biggest bite on these models is most certainly pop, and in terms of drive speed, one could argue they produce velocity at the high end of all chord or maybe even the low end of power, with drive speeds falling below most Ripples and Yellow Pro 4s, but above strong all-court paddles like the Unmarked Alpha or the Gherkin Nightshades. The C45 series actually earned a spot on my top 5 paddles for spin video, and really seemed to engage spin with low-effort swings and brushes, as opposed to some other paddles that benefit a lot from bigger swings and ball absorption. As a little comparison, if the mantra of the Carbon True Foam is to swing through and trust the spin, given to me by Justin Barton from Pickleball, etc., my mantra for the C45s would be to trust the spin, no big swing needed. I had my friend RC test the 16mm Dynasty for a few weeks to put some hours on the paddle, challenge durability, and test some theories I had on what type of player may like this paddle. Aside from being a seriously solid dude, RC played professional baseball for about 8 years, is a 5.0 plus player, and is very picky and analytical about his paddles. Here's what he had to say after his time with the C45. Got my buddy RC here. You've had the paddle for at least a couple of weeks. Tell me what you think, pros, cons. Give me your take, my friend.
First off, thanks for having me here. Thanks for letting me use the paddle.
You're
background on me, 3.5 lefty, loves to poach.
I'm going to give a real intro before, just so you know. Credible, man, we'll see.
Some really great things about the paddle. Man, you can manipulate this paddle like I've never seen. It kind of reminds me, because it's so thin with this core, it kind of reminds me of the things you can do with a Selkirk Air. Like you can really bend the ball. On this court, sometimes the ball doesn't bounce too high, and I was able to drive every low ball and keep most of them in pretty cleanly.
Yeah.
So from a pro perspective, if you like to drive, you can keep everything in and turn your wrist over as much as you want, and there was no concern of either flaring and missing really high or really missing low. Like there wasn't a lot of spray on those drives, which I think was phenomenal. I had to use a little bit more effort on the resets. I needed 2 hands more times than not, just because it's lighter. But had no issues with that after I got used to it. And then it was very easy to turn over backhand dinks with 2 hands. I'm not very good with it, and I found it easier than other paddles. What was tougher though was dinking middle. So just taking the balls very lightly and going towards the middle. I don't know if it's because the ball flight's lower and I just needed to have a steeper angle going into it. But overall, like I like the paddle. If you don't love to be super aggressive with your wrist, it's not for you. But if you'd love to turn the paddle over, like you've got a potential weapon here.
Yeah, I thought you might like it in particular because you do a lot of brushy things without like forward movement type stuff. You had a hard time a little bit, you're saying, with like middle dinks. Any other control aspects?
I would say the face for me right away. Like I didn't get a lot of forgiveness on these sides right here. Like it gave you some more feedback right away when I missed a ball. With some of these newer paddles that are more plush, you just get away with those.
Yeah.
So if you don't have like top control and you're like, hey, I need to make a ball right here on the side of that paddle, it's probably not the one for you. But if you can hit that square right in the middle, like then that will be a concern. For guys like me, it's 50-50 depending on the day.
Did you notice he started 3-5 lefty and then all of a sudden he's talking about pros? You're like, oh, if you're a pro like me and you like rip it from the baseline.
Yeah, the pro thing never came out of my mouth.
Any problems with power?
Power, no. But one thing I'll say is I think you need to manipulate the paddle with a lot of different lead.
Yeah.
So I mean, just for the camera guys, and we can
we
zoom
have
in
like
on
I think
this.
we've got about an inch total around like most of the like horseshoe shaped top, and then a little bit more down the sides as well. So quite a bit of lead.
I would say this isn't a paddle you use stock. Like I think you need to play around with where you put the lead. It's going to need a decent amount because the paddle comes off so light, which I think is a good thing. This way you can customize it to exactly how you want, and out of the box you're not stuck with what you have. If someone doesn't kind of use lead and understand the differences of what it does and where it can go, then I'd probably just shy away from it. It's not something out of the box I would use and say like, hey, this is the one for me. You got to change it.
You got to do something with it right away.
It's almost going to be like a project or like arts and crafts.
Yeah.
So if you like customizing paddles though, you'll have fun with it. But like a carbon like Gen foam where like they're already pretty heavy, like those, there's not much to do. This is like the polar opposite of that.
Yeah. So now that you've had a couple of weeks on it, you've tried a bunch of my paddles in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know a lot. I mean, has it made him better? I don't know, but
probably not.
It's after discount codes, it's like a little over $200.
Yeah.
Would you yourself pay for it? You can be honest.
This one, I'd want to use a couple more paddles that you have before like I would buy it personally, and then I would want to see how I dink middle a little better. For the people who want to be able to turn the paddle over aggressively, like you need to take a look at it, 100%. But from like an offensive weapon, if you're like, hey, I just want to bang and like crash hard, you're gonna have fun with this one.
Lots of attackability, a lot of wrist rolling.
Yep.
Control, middle dinks are tough.
Yep. Found it easy to turn over with backhand, two-handed dinks, which is something I'm not great at. But again, like some standard shots that you're used to with the higher paddles that are more plush, like you're gonna have to work on hitting the center of the face a little bit more.
Yeah, it's definitely opposite of that. So cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, RC. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
See you guys.
I'm also happy to report that after getting the Dynasty C45 back from RC, I haven't noticed any changes in the way the paddle plays after he put it through the ringer. In terms of my overall general gameplay experience, both of these models, the Dynasty and Tempo, certainly felt lightweight and ultra quick, and the Dynasty C45 in particular was certainly one of the quickest elongated paddles I've ever tested, and quicker even than most hybrid shaped paddles. I found myself reacting and getting to the ball much quicker than usual, which made things like counters and hands battles very fun and easy to engage in. That speed and pop went hand in hand to make these killers at the net. If you add in the lower dwell time on top of that, put all together the time it takes to react and put a paddle to the ball, to the time the ball takes to launch off the face and the velocity in which it does so, these paddles really pack a fast punch at the kitchen line. In terms of feel, there's something really satisfying feeling about their softer 45-degree carbon fiber face against the crisp, responsive feeling cord that I really enjoyed. I'm going to bring back some effort to power correlation graphs I made for my last video here, but take them a step further. This is what a paddle like the Yola Pro 4 Perseus looks like, which follows a typical Gen 3 power curve. The correlation between effort and power is exponential, meaning you see a higher proportionate output of velocity the further you move down the effort axis. By comparison, the C45 also seems exponential, but not so exponential as the Yola Pro 4s. You'll also notice, comparing these graphs, that the maximum power on high effort swings is higher on the Pro 4s, but the starting point of the graph is higher higher on the C45s due to its higher pop on lower effort swings and blocks. I think this is one of the biggest distinguishers between these two power paddles. The Yolas, generally speaking, stand out for a high max drive speed, while the C45s stand out for high maneuverability and pop. Again, generally speaking, both the Dynasty and Tempo need weight to play their best. Without weight, I felt both models were pretty unstable and had smaller sweet spots, which was improved with enough perimeter weighting. I would suggest trying out different setups to see what works best for you, but I did land on a final setup for my 16mm Dynasty, which was my favorite of the bunch, which was 0.5 grams per inch weighting around the entire paddle face, and then an extra 0.5 grams per inch of weight starting at one bottom corner, wrapping around the face to the other bottom corner, making it a total of 1 gram per inch where that portion overlapped. If you're a person who likes high dwell time, these are probably not going to be the paddles for you since they have a low dwell time and a relatively low launch angle. Coming from paddles like the Unmarked Alpha, the 16mm Yola Scorpius, or the Pickleball Apes Pulse series, which all have high dwell times, it took an adjustment aiming a little higher on these to land my dinks and drives, which grew on me over time. Talking individually, my personal favorite was the 16mm elongated Dynasty model. It still had a low dwell time and crisp ball response, but that added thickness gave it enough noticeable increase in dwell time and feel to where I could dial it in a bit better than the 14mm version. I also noticed that by adding lead taper on the perimeter, it increased the sort of trampoline-like effect I see in a lot of Gen 3 paddles and increased the quality of the feel of the ball off the face. I found this to be the easiest to control of these models, and on a 1 to 10 scale of control, where 1 is uncontrollable and 10 is a perfect placement every time sort of scale, with most paddles falling between 3 and 7, I would put the 16mm Dynasty at a 4, just below average due to its high pop, but consistent and reliable high pop. I also don't think you see the increase in heaviness here that you see in a lot of 16mm paddles, so the benefit of going down to 14mm were greatly outweighed, and I felt that I preferred the 16 much more, but that's just me. The 14mm Dynasty is even more fast and consistent than the 16mm version, but the cons here are that the sweet spot's a bit smaller and the paddle is a little bit less stable. It can handle more weight for modification, but it would need more weight to compensate for the lower mass in the core. I think the pros versus cons on the Tempo models include a seriously wicked level of maneuverability, easy ability to turn over for high spin, and again, high pop for the pros column. And cons include a very short handle, at least for me, and even though they are standard shape, I think they play pretty unstable without weight. These actually measure a bit less than the full 16 by 8 inches allowable for standard shaped paddles, which is too bad because these were so lightweight. I think they could have really benefited from using the full dimensions without much drawback here. The tempos were kind of hard for me to get going with, but I do think that for people who want to get in on that strong Gen 3 pop with a seriously high maneuverability and they don't mind a shorter handle, this could be a paddle that fits them. That's my take on the two new shapes of the C45 series. I hope the review was helpful. Like always, let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I'll catch you here for the next one.